Hello and welcome again to the Genesis Edge VAV video series. My name is Charles Johnson. I am the lead trainer slash technical engineer of Lynxspring. And today we're going to be talking about how to commission an Edge controller. As we've said before, this is a Niagara controller. It's not a Jace. However, you commission it the exact same way that you would a Jace here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create just an offline station. And then after that, we are going to connect uh, to a controller and then go through the commissioning process. After we go through the commissioning process, I will show you how to add the Onyxx network and update the Onyxx driver. The next video in this series then will be how to bring in inputs and outputs, get them set up, and talk about the different types. So, Basics 101, how do we create a station? Well, we don't go to File and New Station, which a lot of people would think. We have to go to Tools and New Station. And when we go to Tools and New Station, it brings up the New Station wizard. And so we have to give it a station name. In this case here, I'm going to name this test AHU. And we have several options here. We have a new controller station, a new Jace provisioning station, supervisor station Linux, supervisor station Windows. Well, we're not using a PC, so neither Linux nor the Windows template will apply here. But we do have the option between a new controller station and a new Jace provisioning station. The only option that we have here is new controller station. While a Jace or Jenny PC8000 has the ability to use the provisioning service to commission things like the Edge 10 controllers, the JENEsys Edge product does not have it. And today we'll be connecting to a 534. So we're just going to select New Controller Station and select Next. And of course, we have the admin user and we need to set a password. So I'm going to set my password to my controller. And I'm going to select OK. Now we can choose then to open this in the user home, copy it to a secure platform for local hosts with a station copier, or just close the wizard. I will keep select open it in user home just so that you know where the location of the station is. And I'm going to click finish. And as I click finish, you can see that it has gone to my user home. And remember, your user home is your Windows login that you use to log into your laptop. And this is specific to each Windows user. So my user will be different than your user if we were to log into the same laptop. And in here, as long as you have already created stations, it will be under the stations folder. And then we scroll down to see where we have our test AHU. And we have this config.bog with services, drivers, and apps. Remember, this is the standard architecture that we can see. And by standard architecture, this is the standard template that Tritium allows us to use. And the reason why we use the same template over and over again, so everything is in the same space. And now that we've created our station, we now need to connect to our controller. Out of the box, the Edge 534, 514, and 414, but not the VAV. The IP address out of the box would be a 192.168.1.12x, where X is the last number in the serial, the last digit in the serial number of the controller. I have already connected to this controller once, and I have kept it in my home network with its home IP address. But what I've done now is I've clean disted the controller. When you clean dist a controller, it will keep the IP settings, but it'll get rid of everything else and set everything to factory default. So to connect to a platform, we have several options. The first one is to go to File, Open, Open Platform, or we can select or we can press Control, Shift, and P at the same time. I'm going to select Open Platform, and we have two options, Open Platform with TLS or a platform connection. When we switch to platform connection or open platform, it is no longer secure and uses the port 3011. When I switch back to the TLS connection, it is port 5011. I'm going to connect securely, and I'm going to type in the IP address of my Edge 534. Mine is 192.168.1.180. And the very first time you connect to a brand new controller, or one that you have clean disted, we have a certificate. I'm going to click Accept here because I know what the certificate is. If you don't know what the certificate is, I would always select Reject, but that would be for another time to discuss. So after we click Accept, it's going to ask for a username and password. Now, it's remembered the username and password I've done before. However, this is a brand new controller now. So it is all lowercase, Tritium, and Niagara, all lowercase. After I've clicked OK, now the Change Platform Defaults wizard has come up. This happens every time you connect to a new controller. Tritium makes us do this for security reasons. Now I'm going to select Next, and I'm going to change the passphrase. So and remember, the passphrase is only there to encrypt sensitive information such as client-side connections. So email addresses or email passwords, Niagara network connections, and database connections such as SQL or some kind of RDBMS. Now I need to select a new username. So I'm going to select one. And I'm going to change it to a new password. When you're out in the field, I would not use Tritium 1 and a new password. Create your own, whatever your company standard is. And now it's going to remove the default user and add a new user. And click Finish. Now I'm in the platform, which is the hardware side of the Edge controller. I always think of a platform of a Jace or an Edge controller to be the hardware side, whereas the station I always consider to be the software side of it. And together, the platform and the station create the host of the controller that we're connecting to. So in order to actually go through the commissioning process, we're going to select Platform Administration. Now we have a bunch of options that we can go through, but I see one here in particular that looks more appealing for commissioning. And it's this commissioning button right here. When I select this, this launches the commissioning wizard. So I'm going to select the commissioning wizard. And now it's going to go through a bunch of things. The first time that you commission a controller, mandatory, you need to install the software licenses, install and upgrade the modules, install the core software from the distribution files. You can change the TCP/IP settings if you want. You can configure a new passphrase you want and configure additional users. The thing that I like to do as well is I do love to sync with my local date and time. It's just easier to do it the first time around, then you don't have to do it anymore. So once I've selected everything that I would like to do, and I'll go through the TCP/IP settings here as well. I'm going to click Next. Now I need to figure out whether I want to install a new license. And for our purpose, we're actually going to do this. Now, the very first time here, it will automatically install the runtime modules, but you may not always install the UX and the WB. If you select one, you're selecting both. The only time that you can uninstall these will be after you've commissioned the controller for the very first time. The UX modules, these are all the HTML5, the lightweight modules, whereas the WB, this is the actual Workbench module. So if you do not have the Workbench or UX modules in here, you won't be able to do many things in Workbench itself. We select Next, and now we get a chance to install a station. So I'm going to install my test AHU, and I'm going to name this AHU underscore 101. Since we are putting this station on a controller, we always want to make sure that we start after install and auto start. If this were going on our test workbench, we may not select auto start. If this is going on a supervisor, you would also select auto start. We then click Next. And we can see here that just because that we installed a station, we have already started to install automatically a few things here. And I'll go ahead and open this up, or expand this, I apologize. So we can see what modules we have automatically selected for us. So we've got the schedule, the Plat Onyxx driver. So this is specifically from Lynxspring. A lot of this just automatically comes with us when we install a station. And we can see wire sheet, control, hierarchy, Niagara drivers, NSS, the program, tag dictionary. This stuff is already pre-installed from the station that we have created. And remember, this is just a blank station, so we're already installing a bunch of other modules. But now, this is where we go through and select other modules that we may need. So eventually, we're going to go through some BACnet integration. So we'll go ahead and select all the BACnet. And if you like, you can select the BACnet util as well. This is actually kind of a nice one where it creates its own, you can create your own effectively Wireshark to troubleshoot MSTP trunks. Let's go ahead and install the dashboard modules because we're going to create dashboards at some point. We're going to select the email so we can email things. I'm not going to go over export tags here. That'll be for another module, but realistically, export tags are kind of obsolete at this point. I'm going to add the haystack module because I'd like to tag my points. We're going to add kit control because we definitely want to create objects here. And as far as the graphics goes, I'm just going to use the kit pxn for SVG. But obviously, if you have your own modules for graphics, you can add those as well. We cannot do LAN FT10. It would have to be LAN over IP, but we're not going to go through that here. So we'll scroll down through the LAN modules. The Lynx kit control, of course, this comes with any JENEsys Pro builder that's licensed through us. They have specific logic that you may want to use, but I'm not going to do any of that right now. I am going to go with the Modbus TCP as well, because I do have an integration for that we can do. And one that's really, really important for us to have here, though, is the Onyxx driver, because we use the Onyxx network. That is actually how we talk to the built-in I/O on the controller itself. So above all other things, one thing that's different is the Onyxx driver that is absolutely required for us to commission this controller. And we'll continue to scroll through some stuff. I think I will add the weather service as well, but after that, I'm not going to add any more. After you have selected all the modules that you need, we're going to hit next. It will tell us what distribution files it needs. So it needs some core and config. It also needs to make sure that it has the proper Linux OS on the controller. We click next. Now, this is where we had to look at the IP addresses. So right here, I have the IP address, the subnet mask, and now I have the default gateway and the DNS server. If you're going to use an email service, anything like that, you will always use the gateway and DNS server. It's actually how it gets out to the web here. I'm going to select next. And we've already added one user, but we'll add another. In this case here, we're going to use the owner. I've seen a lot of contractors only use one platform name, and I always give the owner, whoever actually bought, bought the controls for the building. I actually always give them a username and password, and it's important to do that, especially since because this is a Niagara product, other Niagara integrators may be available. Sometimes it is unfortunate, though, that we lose a relationship with a customer for a myriad of reasons. It could just be bad blood. It could be the fact that someone else came in with a cheaper service rate. A myriad of reasons as to why. But I always make sure that the owner has access to this so they can give that information to another contractor if necessary. After I've added my additional users, I select next. And now this is a list of everything that we need. It tells us that it's going to change the name of the station. It's going to tell us to copy every file in the directories and subdirectories of that station. All the modules that we're going to install. And if we made any TCP/IP changes, it also allows us to add an additional user and additional passwords. And we're going to be upgrading this with a different license as well. And now we click Finished. And now we get to sit here and watch what's all being sent. And after this process is done, it normally takes, I would say, I would check back in after 10 minutes, and that's really with any Jace or Edge product. I always recommend, okay, just let it go through its reboot process. Be a little patient. Sometimes it takes a while for things to boot. And at that point in time, just go grab a coffee, whatever the case may be. But it is kind of interesting to watch the commissioning wizard and see what it actually adds and when it adds it as well. That way, it's just a checkbox in your head that you see everything that you wanted to add. And you can see that it had the Onyxx driver here, which is really important for us to see. And again, the Onyxx driver is actually what is required to talk to the onboard I/O of our Edge controllers. Sometimes this can be faster based upon your connection, but the way I have my home office set up, this is the fastest it's going to be. And I've seen some faster, and I've seen some significantly slower. So I would not necessarily be worried about the time in which this all takes to install the files. And when you think about it, we are installing quite a bit on a controller. So, it's always good to be patient with these kinds of things. But after it installs the rest of the files on the remote host, it then will update the date and time zone for us. It will update the operating system, and then it will reboot. And again, as you can see, this is the same process that you would use as if you were to commission a JENEsys. Now it says the device is rebooting. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, wait for it to reboot, and then I will resume. Okay, and we are back. It only took about 5 minutes or so, but I was able to log in, and now I'm going to look at the application director. And I think it's very important to always look at the application director when you are when after a commissioning. That way you get to see whether or not there are going to be any errors that pop up from the commissioning. I also want to make sure that the station runs properly. Okay, everything looks good so far. After this, we'll log into the station, and then we will add the Onyxx network, and then we will update the Onyxx driver, and then that will be the end of the video. Okay. It does say that it's running. It does say that the Fox S service, the Fox S server was started. Let's go ahead and see if we can get in. And to do that, we're going to go to File and Open Station, or we can right-click on the host and go to Open Station. And we're going to open the station with TLS. And how we know we only have TLS is because if you look at the details, the Fox port says it's NA and the HTTP port says it's NA, which means that by default, when we create a station, the secure connections are available and only the secure connections are available. So let's go ahead and click OK. When we do, a certificate pops up, and again, we are going to accept the certificate because we know this is the certificate from the station itself. And now we're going to type in the username and password. So I'm going to type in admin and my password. And now I'm in. So we see we have the alarm service. Under the config space, we have the services container, the drivers container, and apps. We have any files, hierarchies, and histories. So this is the standard architecture for any Niagara station. But now I'm going to expand drivers because where do we put the Onyxx network? Under the Onyxx driver. Anything that says network will go under the driver's container. And there are several ways to do this. The first one is we can double click on the driver's container here to bring up the default view of the driver manager. We can then select new. And when I select new, I can scroll down to my Onyxx network and select OK. Or we can go to the sidebar and select palette. We can then select the open palette window and type in Onyxx. And we see that we have the Onyxx driver. We'll highlight the Onyxx driver and select OK. And we are going to expand the Onyxx network folder and expand the network folder under that. And then we are going to drag the Onyxx network into the driver's container and select OK. Now that we have added this, if I expand the Onyxx network, we now have the main Onyxx device that shows up. And I'll double click on the Onyxx network to bring up the device driver. So this is actually the device that is built into the controller itself. Now, before we do anything else, we need to run some Onyxx updates. In order to run Onyxx updates, we need to unhide that slot on the Onyxx network. To unhide any slot, you're going to right-click on the Onyxx network, go to Views, and you're going to go to the AX slot sheet. When you go to the AX slot sheet, you're going to see an action. And it's actually slot number 25. And remember, any component is comprised of slots. So this is the slot number that it has. With this run Onyxx update, you can see that there's an H here, which H stands for hidden. So if I right click on that slot and select config flags, there is a hidden button that I'm going to uncheck. And I'm going to select OK. Now it is no longer hidden. So when I right click on the Onyxx network now, under Actions, we have the Run Onyxx Updates. We're going to select the Run Onyxx Updates, and then we're going to double click on the platform and go to the Application Director. So this is where it is going to run the Onyxx update for us. Once we added the Onyxx driver, it said that it needed to update the firmware. Now that the firmware has finished updating on the Onyxx driver, the next thing we need to do is reboot the controller. Now we have finally finished the Onyxx update, and now it directs us to reboot the controller. So let's go ahead and reboot the controller. And once it comes back up, we are going to be done with the configuring of the Onyxx, we'll be done with the updates on the Onyxx network. So that's it for today, and I will catch you guys later.